It's 2 a.m. You have a meeting tomorrow. You already know what you're going to say, you've already rehearsed it 3 times in your head, and yet, there you are, staring at the ceiling, running the whole thing again. But this time, you're not just rehearsing. You're imagining what happens if you say the wrong thing, then what happens after that, then what your boss thinks, then what your coworker thinks your boss thinks, and somehow, by 3 a.m., you've mentally fast-forwarded to a version of your life where you've lost your job, your confidence, and possibly your apartment. Sound familiar? Here's the thing most people get wrong about overthinking. They think it means you're weak or anxious or just bad at being a human. But what if I told you that the same brain running that exhausting mental marathon at 2 a.m. is also one of the most sophisticated, creative, and deeply empathetic brains in the room? Because the science tells a very different story than the one we tell ourselves. So, today, let's talk about why some people think too much, not to fix you, but to finally understand you. Let's start with something your brain does completely on its own, without your permission, called the default mode network. It sounds like a router, I know, but bear with me. When you're not focused on a task, when you're in the shower, or driving, or staring out a window, your brain doesn't go quiet. It actually gets louder. It starts running simulations. It rehearses conversations. It replays memories. It imagines futures. And for most people, this is where creativity lives. It's where empathy is born. It's where you work things out before the world ever asks you to. But for overthinkers, this network is enthusiastic, almost too enthusiastic. It's like having a browser with 47 tabs open, and every single tab is playing a different version of a decision you haven't made yet. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Researchers at the University of Michigan found that people who tend to overthink, they call it repetitive negative thinking, often score higher on measures of emotional intelligence and self-awareness, meaning the very thing that keeps you up at night is connected to the same wiring that makes you deeply perceptive about people, situations, and consequences. Your brain isn't broken, it's thorough. Sometimes uncomfortably, relentlessly thorough. But why? Why do some brains do this and others just don't? Think about it this way. Imagine two people standing at a crossroads in an ancient forest. One of them shrugs and picks a path. The other one pauses, studies the ground, listens for water, looks at where the light falls through the trees. One of them might get somewhere faster, but the other one might actually survive. Overthinking, at its evolutionary core, was a survival tool. The brains that played out worst-case scenarios, that imagined the danger before it arrived, those were the brains that kept their owners alive. In a world full of predators and scarce resources, thinking too much wasn't a flaw, it was a feature. The problem is that evolution didn't get the memo that most of us are no longer being chased by lions. We're being chased by email notifications and passive-aggressive texts and decisions about whether we said something weird at dinner last Thursday. And so the survival brain does what it was always designed to do. It tries to protect you. It runs the simulation. It looks for the threat. It just can't always find one that matches the alarm bells it's ringing. There's a concept in psychology called rumination, and it's worth understanding because it sits at the heart of overthinking. Rumination is when your thoughts stop moving forward and start going in circles. It's the difference between problem solving, which has direction and momentum, and mental looping, where you're turning a thought over and over without ever landing anywhere new. Susan Nolan-Hoeksema, one of the leading researchers on this topic, spent decades studying why some people get stuck in this loop, and what she found was striking. Ruminators aren't thinking harder, they're thinking longer, and the longer they think without resolution, the more distorted their thinking becomes. Here's a metaphor I love for this. Imagine you're trying to see the bottom of a lake. If you stand still at the edge and just stare, the water eventually clears and you can see right down to the sand. But if you wade in and keep stirring, keep agitating, the sediment clouds everything. You can't see anything anymore. That's what rumination does to your thinking. The more you churn it, the murkier it gets. And yet, stopping feels impossible, because stopping feels like giving up, because your brain, bless it, genuinely believes that if it just thinks about this one more time, it will finally arrive at the perfect answer, the perfect plan, the perfect version of a conversation that hasn't happened yet. There's also something worth naming here that nobody really talks about. Overthinking is often a disguised form of control. When life feels uncertain, when outcomes feel out of your hands, thinking becomes the one thing you can do. It creates the illusion of agency. If I've already imagined every possible outcome, the brain whispers, then nothing can catch me off guard. It's not logical, but it is deeply, profoundly human. And if you recognize yourself in that, if you ever realized you were worrying not because it helped, but because stopping felt more frightening than continuing, then I want you to know that makes complete sense. Your brain is trying to keep you safe. It just has terrible energy management. So, where does this leave you? Here's the perspective shift I want to offer. The goal was never to stop thinking deeply. Deep thinking is one of the most valuable things a person can do. The goal is to notice when thinking has crossed the line from useful to circular, from planning into spiraling. And that noticing, that moment of self-awareness, that is not available to everyone. That is a skill, a hard-won, quietly extraordinary skill. Some of the most creative, empathetic, and perceptive people who ever lived were overthinkers. Darwin reportedly spent 20 years turning his theory of evolution over and over before publishing it. Frida Kahlo channeled relentless internal processing into some of the most viscerally honest art in history. The inner world of an overthinker isn't a cage, it's a workshop, just one that needs a window sometimes. And maybe that's the thing to take away from all of this. You're not thinking too much because something is wrong with you. You're thinking too much because you care about outcomes, about people, about getting things right. The work isn't to shut that down. The work is to learn when to set it down, to trust that not every question needs an answer tonight, that the lake will clear if you let it go still. So, the next time you catch your brain at 2 a.m. running its 47th simulation of a conversation 3 days ago, try saying this, out loud if you want. I hear you, you're doing your job, but we can think about this tomorrow. Because you are not your overthinking. You are the one who noticed it. If this felt familiar, if you saw yourself anywhere in this video, I'd love to know. Drop a comment below. What's the thing your brain just won't let go of? And if someone in your life needs to hear this today, share it with them. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do for an overthinker is to remind them they're not alone.